Hi, welcome, and thank you so much for listening to the Lightside podcast. In this show, I will combine English and Dutch, as my special guest has lived in England for a long time, and many of the listeners will be English speaking. So I will start in Dutch, but later I'll translate it into English, and then you can listen to the interview with Lorraine from Formula Botanica. You can find the exact time of this interview in the show notes below. Hey, welkom in de slotshow van het tweede seizoen. Ik ben Charlotte, haartherapeut, natuurkapster tot de dienst en met plezier babbel ik met jou over jouw haar en de verzorging ervan en natuurlijk nog zoveel meer. In de slotshow pak ik het net iets anders aan. En zeker in deze, want ik heb een heel speciale Engelstalige gast mogen interviewen die een heel mooie boodschap voor ons heeft. Vandaar dus ook dat ik de combinatie doe van het Engels en het Nederlands. In dit seizoen vond ik het echt heel fijn om uit te leggen welke meerwaarde planten en kruiden hebben voor je haar en de verzorging ervan. En wat ik echt heb mogen benadrukken, is dat het zo belangrijk is dat we ons eigen haar leren kennen en heel bewust mogen worden van al hetgeen we gebruiken, stil mogen staan waarom dat we het gebruiken, maar ook of we het echt nodig hebben. Nu, in de show notes deel ik sowieso ook mijn 3 favoriete afleveringen van dit seizoen, maar voor nu wil ik toch nog even een korte samenvatting geven van wat dat planten en kruiden nu echt kunnen betekenen. En voor mij is dat echt teruggaan naar de essentie, naar de eenvoud, naar diepgaande voeding voor je haar, van wortel tot punt. En die laatste woorden heb ik te danken aan een lieve collega van mij, Charlene. Dat zijn woorden die zij op haar social media recent gebruikte. En ik vind dat dat eigenlijk wel heel mooi samenvat hoe dat wij als natuurkappers te werk gaan en hoe dat wij naar iemand zijn haar gaan kijken. Dus de volledige credits van diepgaande voeding voor je haren, van wortel tot punt, gaan helemaal naar haar. Charlene ga je ook in het volgende seizoen te horen krijgen. Dat gaat over het kleuren van je haar gaan. En ik geloof dat ze dan nadien nog eens terugkomt. Dat even terzijde. Terug naar jouw haar. Planten en kruiden gaan je natuurlijke structuur van je haar helemaal tot leven brengen, echt naar voren laten komen. Het gaat daardoor echt tot zijn recht komen. En dat gaat er ook voor zorgen dat je op die manier het beste uit je haar kunt halen. En op zich is dat iets dat niks met een bepaald schoonheidsbeeld te maken heeft. We gaan ons ook niet spiegelen aan een schoonheidsbeeld. We gaan echt gaan naar wie dat jij bent, wie dat jij echt wilt zijn en een laagje dieper vanuit je essentie. Uw eigen definitie geven aan natuurlijke verzorging, zelf dat schoonheidsbeeld gaan creëren, uw natuurlijke haarstructuur echt helemaal tot zijn recht laten komen, dat is waar het mij echt om gaat. En in het volgende seizoen ga ik daar nog een klein stukje dieper op ingaan. Dat is het derde seizoen en dat gaat helemaal in het teken staan van het kleuren van je haar. En ik ga u niet aanmoedigen om het niet te kleuren, maar wel wil ik u gaan aanmoedigen om de juiste keuze te gaan maken voor uzelf. En ik hoop dat dit seizoen u hierbij al heel wat handvaten heeft mogen geven. En moest dat nog niet het geval zijn, ben je natuurlijk meer dan welkom in mijn kapperstoel. En je kan je ook nog steeds inschrijven voor het Find Your Shade of Green Roadmap. Moest het zijn dat je niet door welke reden dan ook in mijn kapperstoel geraakt, maar er wel verder mee aan de slag wilt gaan. En binnenkort ga ik ook starten met online healthy hair talks, want ik leer je oprecht echt heel graag beter kennen. Voor nu ga ik terug even overschakelen naar het Engels. In de show notes vind je het exacte tijdstip terug wanneer het interview met Lorraine begint. Veel plezier! Welcome to the final show of the second season. I am Charlotte, hair therapist and natural hairdresser, and I'm very happy to chat with you about hair, its care, and so much more. In the final show, I take a slightly different approach, and especially in this one, because I had the opportunity to interview a very special English speaking guest who has a very lovely message for us. In this season, it was really nice to explain the added value that plants and herbs have for your hair and its care. And what I have really been able to emphasize is that it is very important that we get to know our own hair, become very aware of everything we use, and consider why we use it and whether we really need it. In the show notes, I share 2 more episodes in English, but for now, I want to give a brief summary of what plants and herbs can do. And that really means going back to the essence, to simplicity, to in depth nutrition for your hair from root to tip. It reinvigorates the natural structure of your hair so you can get the best out of it. So, we are not going to reflect ourselves on an image of beauty, but really bring out who we are in our essence. So, please give your own definition to natural care. Create your own image of beauty. Do full justice to your natural hair structure. That is what truly matters to me. In the next season, there will be an English episode about coloring your hair, so be sure to follow this page if you don't want to miss it. I really enjoy testing out products, giving my feedback on the formula, and assisting fellow indie beauty brands with their hair story. So feel free to send me a message or say hello on social media so we can connect with each other. I'm looking forward to getting to know you, and I wish you a lot of listening pleasure for the interview with Lorraine from Formula Botanica. And please do let me know what your thoughts and inspirations are. Enjoy! So today I have Loraine Dallmeire with me. She is a biologist, environmental scientist, and CEO of the online learning platform Formula Botanica. We're going to talk today with her about the power of natural hair care. Because nowadays we are increasingly looking for natural solutions for our daily care. And we are also seeing an increase in products based on plants and herbs in the hair care world. But what are the real benefits of this? And how do they differ from traditional products such as shampoos and conditioners? Now, Lorraine and her team at Formula Botanica teach people how to make their own hair and skincare using, of course, natural ingredients and more. So for me, she is the ideal guest in the final show of the second season. So welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here.
It's great to having you. Well, we're chatting in English today because Lorraine is living in England, but she's originally from the Netherlands.
Ja, ik kan ook in het Nederlands praten, maar ik woon al zo lang in het buitenland dat mijn woordenschat op technische terminologie echt niet zo goed meer is. Dus we gaan dadelijk in het Engels overschakelen.
Well, vice versa, because my English isn't that very great. So I think it will be a combination today of English and Dutch. For me, then, if I can't find my words, but I guess it's all fine. So,
Yeah.
Lorraine, let's jump right in. The first question: the flooding of the markets. I asked you earlier if it was a good translation, but it's a good translation, so that's fine. What I really mean about that is we have a lot of allergies, sensitivities, and hair problems. They are all increasing while the market is flooded with products. Did we miss something here? What do you think?
I think that you've got a really interesting point here. I think if we think back to, I'm 44 years old. If I think back to how my mother's shelves looked when I was a child in the bathroom, and I think about the number of products that she had there, it was nothing compared to what people have nowadays. We've all seen the shelfies on social media with skincare and with hair care as well. People are being led to buy lots and lots of products. But of course, when you apply lots of products, either to the hair or the skin or the scalp, eventually you're applying lots of ingredients together, which can sensitize the skin. So I think it's a really interesting point that we're seeing this rise in sensitivities and hair problems. And I'm not surprised, because when you apply lots of different products to the skin, the scalp, the hair, eventually your body's going to go, enough. So I think it would be better, and this is very much a philosophy that we have at Formula Botanica as well, to use fewer products and to keep things really simple. So when people enroll with us on our online courses to learn how to make hair care or skincare, we always say start simple. First of all, get to know the products and start with just a few ingredients, because we found over the years that a lot of people enroll with us because they have sensitivities as well, and because they haven't been able to find the products that they wanted on the market. And the simpler you make things, when you do have a problem, it's much easier to figure out what the problem is and which ingredient caused that problem. So if you have a leave-in conditioner that has 50 ingredients in it and you react to that, it's going to be really hard to figure out which one of those ingredients caused the problem. Whereas if you have a leave-in conditioner or a hair oil or something like that, that's very simple, then it's much easier to eliminate the ingredients one by one and figure out what caused the problem in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. And do you think it will have the same effect then as other products? Because my favorite makeup artist, Bobbi Brown, she said we don't need more products, we need better ones. So if you are choosing with or to use less ingredients, does it still work then?
It can do, yes. It depends what the ingredients are, of course. But if you create a formulation that is very potent, then actually that might have a better impact than a formulation that contains lots of different ingredients in such small quantities that they have no effect whatsoever. And the beauty industry often knows those ingredients more as marketing ingredients. And they very much even teach some of the people who are creating our formulations on the sort of more traditional cosmetic science courses that those are marketing ingredients and you're just adding them for the story rather than the effect. So, yeah, I think if you have a very simple formulation that contains fewer ingredients, if you know that you are sensitive to certain product types, then actually you'll find that those ingredients can be more potent and might actually have a better impact.
So we have a we need to have a better look at our ingredients then, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to always learn which ingredients you're applying to your body, to your hair, to your skin. And this is why we've seen the rise in the skincare world, at least, of the skin intellectual. So people who are really educating themselves about the ingredients they're applying to their skin. I haven't seen that movement really start yet in the hair care world. I haven't seen the hair intellectual. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I wonder if that's something that we'll start to see more of.
Well, I truly hope so, and that's yeah, part of my intention with the podcast to educate people and to learn them how to make this decisions
Mhm.
from themselves and not from product brands or trends or what they see on Instagram. We can help them to the overconsumption and maybe even the uncertainty. Do
Yeah.
we think that we are collectively insecure if you see how much products the most people have in their bathrooms?
I think that the beauty industry has done a phenomenal job at telling us that we're not good enough as human beings and that we need all those products in order to become good enough. But we all know that we'll never become good enough because they've created an ideal beauty, a beauty ideal of what a perfect woman looks like. And she doesn't look like any of us. She's stick thin, she has straight hair, she's often white. She has perfection in every form and she doesn't age. So we will never achieve that beauty ideal. And particularly in hair, the beauty ideals are always straight hair as well, which is highly problematic for everyone who doesn't have straight hair, which is obviously an enormous percentage of the global population. So I don't think it's so much that we're collectively insecure. I think it's that we've been told for a very long time that we're not good enough. And that's why we continue to buy products. I think particularly in the skincare world, this is a really big problem. I haven't seen it quite so much in hair care. There's a real difference between skincare and hair care and how people are embracing the natural movement there, which I know we'll come on to anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's so much that we're collectively insecure. I think we've been told by this giant industry, I mean, it's $500 billion industry, that we are not good enough and that the only way we'll be good enough is if we buy their products. And I don't think that's a great business model. It's a great business model for making a lot of money, but it's not a great business model for us as humans, for our environment, for society, for the way that we view ourselves, for our own internal mental health, everything.
Yeah, that's true. And do you think that we expect too much then from a product?
Yes, I do. I think the expectations have been made sky high. And I think the beauty industry uses a lot of scientific terminology. And they started doing this 100 years ago when they started wearing white lab coats in their adverts. When you walk into department stores, they're all wearing white lab coats. We've all been made to believe that our beauty products for the hair, for the skin, have to be highly scientific, and that we have these expectations now that they will erase wrinkles, that they will take 20 years off our appearance. And that's just not realistic. So yeah, I think we've been led to believe that we can achieve amazing things with the skincare and hair care that we buy, and it's just not realistic.
And well, we can apply the same for our hair. We expect that a product will give us shiny, smooth, healthy looking hair.
Yeah.
Maybe it will repair our hair even, but yeah, one product just isn't going to give you that. It has to take a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some cases, it will never achieve that. Hair shininess. I find this a really interesting topic because the shininess of our hair is determined by how straight it is. Because the straighter your hair is, the more light will reflect off it. So we're being led to believe that we should achieve shiny hair, but there are certain hair types that will never probably achieve shiny hair. So there's an inherent racism in some of these claims as well, which is something that I find deeply uncomfortable to see. And yeah, it's hard to achieve something that will never be achievable.
I find that very interesting because when I was younger, I had straighter hair. You can see how my hair looks on
Yeah.
video. But when I had my kids, due to the pregnancy, the hormonal change,
Yes.
it made me, ja, like I say it, ja, een krul dat wel wilt krullen, maar niet kan. So it's a type of curl. It wants to curl, but it just can't. It's not. Yeah, it's an in between curl, I guess it is. And I nourish it. I treat it well, but like you said, it has a different texture. So the look and feel is so much different than my hair was five, maybe 6 years ago. And um, for me as a hairdresser, I had a lot of problems. It was very confronting because um, I normally, or I know how I can treat my hair, but I had like my grandmother said to me, yeah, you have to nourish your hair better because it looks dry. And I was like, but I'm doing everything I can. It's just the structure of my
Yeah.
hair at this moment.
Yeah.
Um, and I think if I didn't fully accept it yet, the texture, because it asks a different way of treating it and nourishing it, and I'm getting there. But I feel if I can truly and wholly accept it, I won't get that type of reactions from my environment. So I love it that you, yeah, I hadn't think about it that in that way, like you said earlier. And so if we talk then about the role of the hairdressers, the hairstylists, and for you, the online educational platforms. Um, you encourage people to make their own products, while I offer hair care. So in a way, we are both links in the beauty industry. Do we contribute enough to people's well-being, you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. Almost everyone who enrolls with Formula Botanica, and we've had over 20,000 students now all over the world, almost all of them want to become an entrepreneur. So everyone wants to learn to formulate, but they want to turn those formulations into a business. So we approach it from a slightly different angle because we are creating entrepreneurs all over the world who are making skincare and hair care. Although I have to say it's much more skincare than it is hair care. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. Um, and we contribute to people's well-being that way by turning them into an entrepreneur who can completely change their life by learning a new skill and monetizing that skill and creating a business. But what I love is that those people, those amazing entrepreneurs, our graduates, are out in the world creating products that help people. And those products are often simpler and they're based on naturals and botanicals and they work. And every single graduate I interview, because I interview a lot of them at Formula Botanica, they always say that the thing they love the most is the feedback they get from their customers and how much their products help them and how they have customers write to them, phone them up, meet them in tears saying, you have completely transformed the health of my skin or my hair with the products that you've made. So that's how we contribute to the beauty world. We're trying to actively change the beauty industry by changing the beauty brands that you buy from, changing the messaging that goes with those beauty brands, because our graduates aren't out in the world telling people that they're not good enough as humans. So we're changing the toxic beauty narrative by effectively training up tens of thousands of people worldwide to change the beauty industry. And that's how we contribute to it.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes feel I contribute to the toxicity. I had a podcast earlier about Mother's Day, and I don't do a lot of advertising or discounts for Mother's Day, and because I give a lot of myself and my knowledge through the treatments I give. But at the same time, I was wondering, yeah, why am I not doing that? Because it's a missed opportunity. Mother's Day, it's the high day of advertising and to reach my client. But yeah, it doesn't feel that right to me to no, not advertise, but to over consumptualize it, if that makes sense. But it's nice to hear from you that you are being actively in not participating, the toxicity in the beauty world. Next question. So we have a lot of big beauty brands in hair care and in skincare, but we also have the smaller ones, and maybe you heard of the term indie beauty brands. Can you explain a bit what the term indie beauty brand is?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I have definitely heard of the term because we're teaching graduates all around the world who are starting indie beauty brands. And there have been hundreds, if not thousands, started by our community over the years. In fact, on our website, we have a big directory of all of them where you can search by region of the world and go buy from them, please, because they're amazing. So an indie beauty brand is an independent brand. It's a small brand started by one or a couple of people together. It is independently owned, so it's not owned by a giant corporate. And that is the main difference, really. But of course, in terms of indie beauty, there are also lots of other differences. So typically we see the founders of indie beauty brands are often really driven to want to change the beauty industry. They don't want to necessarily be the same as what's already out there. They want to change that narrative. They are often making formulations that are very different. And I find this really exciting to watch. From a hair care perspective, for instance, I've seen so many indie beauty brands really embrace shampoo bars, conditioner bars, and I'm now starting to see the big players start to release that type of product as well. Even my local supermarkets, the big brands are now stocking shampoo bars there, which they weren't 2 years ago. So it's really interesting to see how the indie beauty brands are guiding the mainstream industry as well. And I think that's probably one of the main differences, along with the sustainability movement, because the sustainability movement from the big players isn't good enough yet. And I think a lot of the really fundamental radical changes will come from the indie beauty brands who will hopefully drive the big players to change as well.
Yeah, and I see a lot of indie beauty brands for the hair. Sorry, no, for the skin and the body. but not a lot for the hair. Why is that, you think?
That's a very good question. So the main reason is that it is harder to make hair care than it is to make skincare. So if you think about it, the majority of the hair care products that people buy are to wash the hair and condition the hair. Obviously, hairstyling products are a big thing as well, but the main ones that people buy are used in the shower or in the bath or when we're washing, and they're washed down the drain with the water. And because of that, you need you make the majority of hair care products are made using water or water-based ingredients. And the moment you start to work with water, you have to think about preservation because otherwise it will grow bacteria and mold. You have to think about stabilization. You have to think about the overall texture, and it's a far more complex way of formulating. So when someone starts to learn how to make skincare, they will typically start with a facial oil, a body butter, a balm. None of those things contain water. And some indie beauty brands never go beyond that either. They just stick with those waterless products. But when you move into hair care, you have to embrace the water, and that makes it harder. The other big change or the other big complexity is, of course, that there are so many different hair types. And everyone's hair responds differently to different products. So for instance, we teach a diploma in organic hair care formulation. And in that, we have this deep conditioning balm, this treatment that you apply to the hair. If I put that on my hair, I turn into a giant grease ball. It is like the most horrible thing. I don't want it anywhere near my hair. And yet, if you have really kinky or coily hair, it loves that type of formulation. So there's a complexity as well around formulating 4 different hair types. And I think a lot of indie beauty brands struggle to really know which hair type to aim for unless they are specifically aiming for just one hair type. So I think it's those 2 things, really, the water and the hair types.
Well, I had vertegenwoordiger in het Engels.
Representative?
Yeah, and I asked her, well, for who are your products for? And she said, for everyone. And that triggered me because I was like, you can't make a product or a shampoo for everyone. Well, yeah, you can make it, but it's not going to work for everyone. So you really need to pinpoint your ideal hair type and just focus on that and nail it and talk about it and find that type of people and educate them as well in how they can treat their hair in a much more efficient and better way.
Yeah, it's super important. Of course, you can't make products for everyone. If you're making products for everyone, you're making products for no one, is what we always say. You have to
that's true.
be laser focused. I think a big part of the problem is that the mainstream beauty industry has also, they've always claimed to make products for everyone, but realistically, in terms of hair, they've been making products for white women with straight or wavy hair. And women with textured hair in particular have really been left out of the conversation. I host a podcast, as you know, the Green Beauty Conversations podcast, and I interviewed someone a while ago. Amazing. Her name's Equi, and she runs a hair care brand called Equi Botanicals. And she was telling me how she went to a very big, like one of the biggest beauty brands in the world, and said, I've created these products for textured hair, and it's something you don't have yet. And they said to her, we're not interested in this because Black women will buy whatever we tell them to buy, basically, which is the most horrible thing to say to someone. Oh my goodness. I mean, that is so incredibly racist. So I think that's why there are these particularly indie brands mushrooming out the ground for textured hair. But we need some more of them.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. I have a podcast playlist from all the episodes that are about hair care from Formula Botanica, so I can narrow it down because my focus is obviously the hair. But I also think hair care for graying hair.
Yes,
it's the same.
Yeah. I mean, the moment you hit a certain age, of course, you are obsolete according to the beauty industry. And that's just not true, of course. So that's a very good point.
Now, you talked about that hair care is much more difficult to make because you need water or you're using water-based ingredients. But what about the Ayurvedic herbs? Because we are now seeing Ayurvedic shampoo herbs, the dried powder or even dried shampoo. What do you think about that?
I think there are some incredible plants out there that can be used in hair care. We talk about this in our diploma as well. I mean, a lot of the initial hair care herbs that we've been using as humans for a very long time have come from that Ayurvedic background as well. Some of them have some really interesting science that's coming out as well, suggesting that they actually do the things that people have known for a really long time that they do. I think it's amazing that we're seeing this rise in Ayurveda in hair care. I think there are many other ingredients that can be used as well. I think it depends a little bit on where you are in the world, but it's exciting to see.
And maybe it's a missed chance because you don't need water if you can create, or if you work with the Ayurvedic herbs and the powdered shampoo, you don't need water. So maybe that's a missed chance for a lot of indie hair care brands. Well, I also work with the Ayurvedic herbs myself and some brands. But I still get the feeling it's just not that sustainable because it comes from all over the world. And I have the feeling that we are forgetting, our own rich plant history. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think a lot of people get very excited by something they see on the other side of the world in any country, really, which feels exotic to them. And then they lose sight of what grows around them because there are some phenomenal plants all around us. And every single one of us lives in a country where you can buy these old plant herbal books that are hundreds of years old, where people summarize the wisdom and plant knowledge that was around us. And I think a lot of that is overlooked. So there's some incredibly exciting opportunities there. Of course, there's hardly any scientific evidence to back any of it up, but that doesn't mean that those plants don't work. It just means that we haven't researched them yet.
And do you think we then forget the sustainability part if we use materials from all over the world?
Well, sustainability is a complex topic. So, I mean, I could buy green beans from Kenya and to have in my dinner, and they might actually have a lower carbon footprint than ones that were grown in the UK where I live. So it isn't always as easy as saying it's traveled a really long way, therefore it's less sustainable. However, it is something that we need to take into consideration. It is often easier to source ingredients from around you. It means you can have more of an impact in your local community. And yes, you have to look at the sustainability of each ingredient on a case-by-case basis, because unfortunately it isn't as simple as saying it's come from India, therefore it isn't sustainable. If we grew hibiscus here in the UK in a greenhouse, it might be even less sustainable.
Yeah, that's true. Suzanne from Obloom, she said you have to pick your battles, and you have to start somewhere and just pick your battles. You can't, do everything. Do you think there's a difference between the professional hair care products and the indie hair care products?
Well, this is an interesting question because I don't know an awful lot about professional hair care, but from what I understand, and you will know this much better than me, I believe that some salons are often sent really concentrated products that they can dilute themselves. So yes, in some cases they may be formulated completely differently. And I think obviously indie brands are formulating directly to consumer, whereas people who are formulating for hair salons are formulating business to business. And those are different types of formulations. But there's obviously an amazing opportunity there for brands to sell into both of those routes.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the only difference, that it's just much concentrated, and maybe they will use more expensive ingredients. I'm not sure. But there's an idea that you have to buy your shampoo and your conditioner from your hairdresser because that brand will only be the best for you. And I think that's a very old idea. I think we're going to change that, and it is changing, because I see that more and more indie hair care brands not really reaching out, but it's for me as a hairdresser, well, I can choose obviously which products I use, and it's easier to approach them because you don't have to buy a lot of stock. You can the
Minimum order quantities.
and also there isn't. I almost wanted to say they're nicer, but that's not true. There isn't a barrier between them.
Yeah.
They are very reachable. You can ask them everything. They don't push or sell or promote that much. They just want to give you the explanation of how their products work, and that's it. If you buy from them, fine. If you're not buying from them, also fine. Whereas the big hair care brands, they want you to sell it and to promote it, and it's just a different energy, a different vibe, maybe a different world, maybe even a different allure. I'm not quite sure if I'm explaining it well.
I totally get it. You're a number to those big businesses. You're not a human. You're just a number that they want to sell to. But an indie beauty brand, particularly when they're very small, they will treat you as a valued client.
Yeah.
And they will want to build a relationship with you. So I think hair salons, hairstylists, hairdressers have an amazing opportunity to forge those relationships with indie brands. But I think there's also a great opportunity for those salons to make their own products and sell them there. We see it with skin salons all the time. We have so many estheticians and people who run spas come to us to make their own skincare brands. There's an amazing opportunity here for hairdressers and hairstylists to make their own hair care brands because they have the client base already.
And I think the problem there is that a typical hairdresser is very creative and they just want the products to work, as in they want to create a type of result in the hair, and it just has to work with it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They are very the creative part is the biggest part for the standard hairdresser, whilst for the more natural hairdressers or the more holistic hairdresser, it's more about nourishing the hair and working with your natural hair type. And so I think that's the difference. And then at the same time, it takes a lot of time and study and knowledge to create a product. And I just don't think an ordinary hairdresser is going to or is willing to put the time and effort in it. They just want to have a product that gives them a certain result for the hair, so that their creativity can flourish or can because the hair is the business cards typically for a hairdresser. So I think there's I don't think it's really a problem, but I think that's the barrier or the issue or whatever. But I am dreaming, of course, of creating my own hair care products, obviously. But I really like to, I really like the local plants and herbs, and if I can take it from my garden and put it on the hair, that's my dream coming true. But then you have also the legislation and the laws. It's especially in Europe. If I would be living in America, it would be more easier. Easier in a sense of creating it and selling it, but obviously we have rules that are protecting the customer and
absolutely. And those rules are important, but those rules are not that hard to work with. Everyone always thinks that they're very complex, but if you have a blueprint for how you step through it one by one, we provide that blueprint in all of our courses. It isn't that hard.
That's true. I took the course for the skincare, and I was a little bit bummed because I was not quite sure in taking first the hair care course or then the other, but I didn't have a lot of background in formulating. So I took the first one for the basics, and then we can start from there.
Absolutely. You have to learn to walk before you can run. Is what
that's true. So if we talk about, or if we're going to talk much more about shampoos, for example, choosing a gentle cleansing shampoo, I often recommend it, obviously, to my clients. And I also talked about it with Iris van der Wansia. She's a graduate from Formula Botanica, so I think
Amazing.
you will know her. And I also encourage people to create their own Find Your Shade of Green roadmap that will help them with this. I got my inspiration, of course, from the course and your podcast, but
Yeah.
I find it's quite a challenge to find the right gentle cleansing shampoo, because the composition of detergents is sometimes quite complex. Do you have any tips to find or choose a gentle cleansing shampoo?
The $1 million question. This is not easy because it depends a little bit on your hair type as well. It depends a lot on your hair type and how much you're willing to experiment. So I have straight hair, although actually when I went on holiday last year, we went to Central America and I didn't have a hairdresser. I didn't have a hairdryer. All of a sudden I realized I don't have straight hair. I have really, really wavy hair, which came as a bit of a surprise to me. But I'm very happy to experiment. I'm happy to go out. I'm not loyal to a particular shampoo brand. I buy the one that I feel like buying. Not everyone has that luxury, and particularly women with textured hair, I know, do not have that luxury to just go out and try products because it's not something that they're prepared to do. So I think actually talking to your friends, your family, and finding out what works for them in those cases is often even the better option. And if you don't have that, then you can join groups on places like Facebook and listen to what other people are recommending. But I think the only way is through trial and error, because even like your scalp health, everything changes throughout your age as well, as you were obviously rightly pointing out earlier. It's not easy to just turn over a bottle and go, okay, this one only contains cocoa glucoside, therefore I must use this shampoo. That it just doesn't work like that. It depends entirely on the health of your hair, the health of your scalp, your age, the type of the hair texture that you have. So I think a lot of it just comes through trial and error and finding out what works for you. And if that's not something you're prepared to do, then talking to the people around you to get advice and recommendations from them.
Yeah, and I also think try and find a hairdresser that suits your or matches your own lifestyle a
Yeah.
bit. I am a very down to earth, natural, not hippie like, but I really love nature. And like I said, if I can take it from my garden and put it on my hair, that's my Valhalla, to say it like that. So I'm not the type of hairdresser that will be using silicons or synthetic hair coloring, or I'm not, I don't style my hair, I don't brush my hair. So I think that that's also an important factor, to find a hairdresser that suits your needs. And that's also what I teach in my online course, the Find Your Shade of Green roadmap, to really learn how to create your own roadmap in your natural hair care, so it doesn't have to be a struggle, and you don't have to buy a lot of products, or you don't have to go to 10 different hair salons to find the right person for you. Lorraine, we talked about a lot of things, so now I'm wondering, how do you see the future of natural hair care?
That's a good question. I think much like we talked about earlier, actually, the rise of the skin intellectual, I think we'll start to see the rise of the hair intellectual, the hair intellectual. I don't know what the word is. We don't have a word for it yet. I think people are going to become more savvy around what is in their hair care. And I think people are going to start questioning the mainstream, much like they did with skincare. I think it's a little bit less than we'll see with skincare because I think people just often want a shampoo and a conditioner and they're done. But I think through the rise of the sustainable beauty movement, we're going to see more solid formulations, more waterless formulations. People are going to start getting more used to shampoo bars, conditioner bars. Also, I think there might even be a movement towards washing hair less, which is not a bad thing. Let's not forget that the reason we wash our hair so much is, again, because the beauty industry told us to. Back in the 60s, even, people just used to wash their hair once a week. And now, of course, some people wash it even multiple times a day, which someone with long hair, that fills me with horror. But I think we'll start to see, excuse me, a real change towards the way that we embrace hair and the way that we bring sustainability into it. So that's what I hope for the future of hair care.
Yeah, I love it that you say less washing. I think it was Suzanne from Obloom. She said, let's release the grease, I think it was.
It's
Oh, I
amazing.
love it. I love it. And I see it with my clients. They come in and they say, I have a very greasy, oily scalp. And then I ask, okay, but how much are you washing your hair? Well, every day. But when I examine it closer, they aren't true. They don't have really an oily scalp. It's because they just wash it too much. But they have the feeling and the anxiety, really the anxiety that another person is going to think that their hair is greasy and dirty.
Wow.
And that breaks truly my heart.
Yeah.
Because it's the uncertainty that creates the problem. And I had a very beautiful results. I did an interview in season 1, I think, with Charlotte. We have the same name, and she hated her hair. Her bathroom was filled with products. It truly was a big struggle for her, and she had the idea that people would think she was dirty. Her hair was dirty, and then she amazingly shifted it after one appointment. She also did a lot of other more internal work, like not therapy but different courses on self-love and stuff like that. But it truly amazed me how big the change and the shift was. And yeah, it really breaks my heart if people say I wash it every day, sometimes twice a day, because I don't want to think that I don't want to think that people are thinking I have dirty hair or I'm dirty. So
Yeah, I think we'll start to see a shift in that. I really do. I think people are starting to accept themselves more for who they are. And I think hopefully hair care will play a role in that as well.
and that's also the one of the goals of the podcast, to change that narrative. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're almost getting there. One more question. How can we make conscious choices for our health and that of the planet?
I think the main thing is to consume less. I think we all know that. We buy so much stuff. And the same is with the beauty industry. Buy what you need, and maybe even try and make what you need sometimes as well, because it's fun. And you'll feel really empowered being able to create something that works exactly for your hair, your scalp health. I think just consuming less though, and accepting ourselves for who we are and accepting the beauty of our humanity and all those things you just said about, how sad it is that someone would feel scared of being viewed as inadequate because of, again, a message that the beauty industry has told us. If we can shake that message off and leave them behind, then I think we can create an entirely new beauty industry that looks and feels and sounds very different. And I'm excited for what that would be.
Yeah, I'm as well. So buy less, use less,
Yep.
wash less, and use products that just contain less ingredients. I think that's to sum up our talk today. I think that's the most important thing to remember.
Sounds good to me.
Lorraine, thank you so much for this nice conversation. And I truly wish you all the best. And I'm looking forward to be following the hair care course in the
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for all the work you do here in changing the narrative around hair care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lightside podcast. There will be more episodes coming, so be sure to follow this page if you want to hear more. And please do let me know if you would like more episodes in English. It's not my native language, but I really enjoy talking about hair, and of course I can do that in Dutch or in English. To spread my message, I would greatly appreciate it if you would share this episode, leave a review or rate it, because that's the way the online cookie crumbles.